2.
Hello out there in YouTube land, Rival here. Thanks for stopping by. Got a review on the turntable for you this week, but as you can see, it is not a knife. I'll start off with just a quick apology. It's been several weeks since I made a couple of videos, not for lack of wanting to, but mostly because I had a pretty bad back injury, about 3.5-4 weeks ago, which kind of put me out of commission for quite some time. I have not spent a lot of time in the shop. I've got hardly any projects done, so really kind of just struggling to catch up from behind and focus on making sure I'm feeling all right and all that. So this has been a long time coming. I've actually had this particular tool or bracelet or whatever you want to call it for about 5 or 6 weeks now. I got it in September of 2015, and it is now November. So I wanted to give it, several weeks of use before I did a video on it. I thought about doing just a first impression video. They dropped sometime around August, September. I don't know exactly when they dropped, but they were announced at SHOT Show this year. All in all, over the past 6 weeks, I'm pretty impressed, and my views are pretty positive on this thing. There are a few drawbacks, so I'll kind of talk to those and point them out as we go through it. But the bottom line, if you come into this wanting something that kind of looks cool that you can wear around, that under certain circumstances will allow you to have the opportunity of a tool without having to go get one, or in the event that you don't have any alternatives, this fills that role. If you're looking for a multi-tool to wear every day and rely upon, probably not what you're going to be wanting, because it's not the most comfortable, the most awkward, or the most easy to use. That being said, it is very handy. So we'll dive right in. Packaging, overall, very nice. These things are available at Cabela's, online. I'm sure as they seem to be pretty popular for the most part, so I would imagine these be coming out in more retailers. There is a version with a watch on it, and there is a DLC version. This is the standard stainless steel version. So this is the same packaging that you'd get. Little manual. And the tread. So, like I said, all in all, I'm really liking how this works, how it looks, how it feels. It snaps together very much like a traditional watch band. It's pretty easily sizable. One thing that is particularly cool, and of course I didn't grab any before I did this video, but all of these links can be taken on and off with a penny. So this was designed for these screws to be the size of a penny. So that's one thing that you can do to take them on and off in a pinch. You don't have to have another tool to adjust your tool. So that's pretty sweet, and it works really well. You've got several different bits and little drivers and all kinds of stuff that go along with this. Hold on, I dropped the manual. 1 second. I believe there's approximately 30 tools in total, which is pretty impressive. It comes with a breakdown of each of the links and what's on each of the links. But what's awesome is each of the links are labeled really well. Hopefully, I'm on a different camera today, you guys, so I apologize. But like there you can see, this is a 1/4-inch driver. It's a number 1 and 2 Phillips head driver and a 3/16 flathead. This link has got a 10 mil driver, a 5 mil Allen wrench, and a 6 mil Allen wrench. And there's all kinds of varieties. There's fat screwdrivers, excuse me, skinny flatheads, more Allen wrenches with drivers in the middle. This one's pretty standard. It's got a flathead and a Phillips head on it. But a couple of unique ones. So here's a square driver. Whoop, hello, sorry guys. That is a, oh gosh. Is that one of the few that's not labeled? That one's not labeled. I believe it's an 1/8-inch square driver. There's a cap lifter, beer bottle opener on the inside here. And one of the coolest things, I think, is the clasp right there. It's a nice pinch clasp, but that's really a 1/4-inch square driver as well. So, if you've got some sockets or something handy. I don't know why you might have them handy in that situation, but you know, you can drop a socket on there and then use that as an additional tool. That's pretty rock and roll. I think it's pretty ingenious that they've got that 1/4-inch square bit that's turned into that clasp. So that's pretty awesome. Now I've seen some of the original prototypes. They actually had 2 different links, and they combined this tool from 2 different links. So this is a package or a clamshell package opener on this side. You can see there's a little blade there, so you can poke it into the clamshell package and just zip it along the edge and trim that off. And then, oh, there you go. That's a SIM card tool. So you can poke that into a phone and it pops that little SIM card slot open. So that right there is pretty handy. I've used this more as an envelope opener than a clamshell package. I'm not buying, you know, a lot of stuff that's sealed, but you know, in a pinch, if you've got nothing else and you got a couple of pieces of mail, you can zip that right through really quick, and it sharpens up, you know, really easily with just a thin, like a pole sharpener, diamond tip. It is stainless steel. Now this is not a hardened steel bracelet. This is 17-4 stainless. So it's a mild steel. It's not too hard, not too soft. It gets a lot of work done, but here, I don't know if you can catch this. There is some, you know, bending and mauling of the tip of the drivers that I use the most. There's some scratching on it. That's kind of to be expected. This has got to be a tool that's stainless enough that, you know, if you're out in the rain or it's getting wet or it's getting moisture from your sweat, that it's not going to start to corrode right away. So there's not nearly as much carbon in this as maybe a standard multi-tool blade, and definitely not as much as, say, like a premium knife blade. That's one of the trade-offs you make when you go with this particular tool, which is fine. Again, I don't intend this as my primary my primary EDC or my primary tool loadout. Quite frankly, I have a Skeletool, which I use on a very regular basis, which is clipped to my work bag. So, you know, this, in a pinch, it means I don't have to go back to my bag to grab another tool because there's so many different things that this works well for. And I'll give you a for example. You know, I was downstairs in my basement a couple of days ago, getting the furnace and everything just kind of prepped and cleaned out and switching out the filters because winter's coming. And I wanted to open up a duct and just make sure that the chimney it didn't have any blockage or anything that needed to be cleaned up. Before we get into winter, I don't want to have any problems with backup or anything like that. I would have needed to run out to the garage to grab my socket. That was a 1/4-inch socket to be able to get the screws out for some of the ducting that was in there. And I realized as I was kind of reaching around, oh, hey, this has got a 1/4-inch on it. And you can kind of see it's a little marred up because I put it in my grip. And it holds, I don't know, fairly well. It's a little awkward, but once you've used it a few times, you get used to it. The bracelet itself ends up becoming the handle, and with sideways or twisting movement, there's enough rigidity that you've got some decent torque when you're working with it. So I just use this over the cap of it. It took a little longer than maybe my socket, but I was able to get my duct work done, take a peek up in there, put it back on in a matter of minutes. Didn't have to run out the garage, put my shoes on, grab my tools, put my tools away, clean my tools off, all that jazz. So that was a real-life example of when this came in handy. A few times at work where somebody's like, well, hey, man, anybody got a screwdriver? This comes in handy. So, you know, again, the handy factor can sometimes outweigh the EDC factor. If I need to do some hard work, some torquing or something like that, I'm probably going to grab a real tool or my Leatherman or something like that that may be better suited for a heavier task. That being said, you know, I've been wearing this for about 6 weeks now, and it gets a lot of attention. Especially the first week I wore it. You know, a lot of people that see me on the regular, I don't wear a lot of bling, a lot of man jewelry. So it probably caught some people off guard, just the fact that I was wearing a bracelet. They noticed it. They asked me about it. That's kind of a funky looking thing. What is that? It definitely was a conversation starter. And there were a handful of guys that as I was walking around, they're like, hey man, is that one of those Leathermans? So people definitely know what it is, or have heard of them, or have seen information about them. So that sparked some conversation with some guys in like engineering or IT that I'd never really talked to before. So that was kind of cool. It definitely sparked some interest in conversation, which was nice. So I mentioned it's adjustable. I actually had to take 2 links out to get it to fit my little wrists. I'm not a big dude. So when I did that, I actually reconfigured it to make it look the way I wanted it to look, centering the half link. And then I put the 2 largest diameter drivers, and then smaller and smaller it goes out and around. When it comes in its own configuration, you know, the tools that I took off, I don't need an oxygen wrench, and I don't need these big fat Allen keys. So I took that tool off. And this is a 6 mil. I'm trying to see inside there. Yeah, it's like a 6 mil driver. Don't use too many metric drivers. Don't use a whole lot of drivers in general. So those 2 links got sacrificed to give this a good fit for me. You can go in through Leatherman and buy additional links if you need bigger links. If you want more of the same links because you use them out, or you just prefer to have more screwdriver bits than Allen key bits or something like that. Sorry about that, guys. Ran out of card space on my video there. So we were just mentioning the fact that you can get different links to make this bigger, smaller, or put it in your preferred configuration, which is pretty awesome, pretty handy. And as I mentioned at the outset of the video, they're actually making one. I don't think it's hit the market yet, but in place of a pair of links, it has a watch. Not sure what the quality is going to be, who the manufacturer is going to be on that watch. Obviously, Leatherman doesn't make watches, so I'm sure they're contracting it out. But they are pretty big sticklers for quality, so I'm going to put my faith in the fact that it would be a good quality watch. This also comes in a black DLC coated version. Personally, after having used it for several weeks, I would steer clear of that. Especially the bottom links. You know, I work a desk job for the most part. I spend a little bit of time out in the shop. And there's some wear on it from just when your hands are, you know, in a resting position. So I'm not sure how durable that's going to be on the DLC, or what kind of marring or marking that would leave. But there definitely would be marks, scratches, scuffs, marring, and things like that that would offset that nice black DLC at some point in time. So I was favorable to the steel version to begin with. It's a bit cheaper. Now, these things aren't the cheapest things in the world either, and that's another factor that comes into it. You're going to drop $160 on this bad boy and close to $200 on the DLC version. The watches are going to add even more to those prices. So, you know, if you can get a Leatherman a Wave for $75, and this is double that. Again, and this is not going to play your primary role. So it's something that you've got to consider. Why am I getting this? What am I going to do with it? Now, another positive for this, though, this thing is travel appropriate. They even advertise as such. It's been reviewed and approved by the TSA. There are no blades on it that can be used for nefarious purposes. Therefore, you know, you'll have to take it off when you go through your airport scanners. But this is something you could travel with. So it's a tool that you can take with you. And for you guys that do a lot of traveling, that's a big positive. I always feel kind of naked if I don't got my knife on me, or at least, if not my knife, some kind of tool on me. So it's a big positive to know that. There is one more pro I want to show you guys. Let me grab a driver. Sorry. All right, so like I said, there's one more thing I wanted to show you guys. Sorry for all the cuts and the breakups in this video, but I wanted to do a good thorough review. So as I mentioned before, I carry a skeleton tool on me in my work bag, just in case. So one feature that I found out that I hadn't really seen advertised or mentioned by a lot of people, I kind of found out by accident, is that some of these links, if you can see the hollow ones, they've got a hollow slot crosswise, not just in the through section. And what you can do is, for those of you that carry tools that use the Leatherman bit system, it's like a flat bit driver system. Whoop, that was not a full one. There's one. They slide right in. Now again, it's not it's not, you know, I wouldn't go get a bit driver set with the intended use that this is going to be a primary user. It is something that just, it happens to work out. It's good in low clearance positions, and it's good and solid and strong enough that it can give you some good torque and drive. I've adjusted a few knives with my T6 here. I always leave a T6 in this driver just for that exact purpose, a T6 and a T8. That's very handy. So now they don't have any retention or detent or anything like that. They do kind of slide freely, but once you put it in there, put it in a closed position, kind of put your thumb, you know, towards the top or towards the tip, hold it in place, and you can get some light driving done. Like I said, it's not something that they advertise big on. It's just a perk and a positive, and that was something that really threw the awesome factor over the top on it for me. I will throw out 2 drawbacks as well. You know, as I mentioned, it is a softer steel, so you get a little bit of marring and marking on some of the tools. I did, one of these flatheads is slightly bent just from high torque on a rusted screw that I was kind of trying to get out. Ended up having to put this down and go get a screwdriver because it wasn't the right tool for the job. So that's something you got to keep in mind. I'm not a big jewelry guy, as I mentioned before. When I wear watches, I wear leather strap watches. I don't wear metal band watches. So one thing it took me a couple weeks to get used to was when this is on your wrist, the treads will, whoop, hold on, it's kind of hard to do around the camera, you guys, I apologize. When it's on your wrist, the treads, I mean, they move and they wiggle with your body and your movement. So if you've got a lot of arm hair, that gets a little pinched up in some of the gears and the links. So there's a couple of times where I gave my wrist a shake and I pulled a few arm hairs out, and you know, it's not excruciating pain. It smarts a little. I wasn't prepared for it. It's something to be aware of. And then just having the weight of it on your wrist. You know, when your wrist is in a resting position, this falls onto the cuff of your hand. You're gonna feel that. It's just something that you've got to get used to now. Six weeks into having this thing, it's not a bother to me. I don't even give it a second thought. But like the first 2 weeks, it was something that I was just kind of acutely aware of. I got this big clunky metal thing that's on my wrist. Interesting. Again, not a huge drawback. It's just something to be aware of. So all in all, I've got positive things to say about this. I strongly recommend it to a lot of people, especially people that are into you know, EDC tools, tactical tools. It's definitely got that cool factor to it, but it's got a lot of usefulness to it. There is a lot of times where I was in anybody got a insert tool here, and oh yeah, I just happen to have that on my wrist. I don't even need to run out to my car or run out to my you know, my Leatherman that's in my work bag or something like that. So all in all, I'm extremely impressed. Excellent design and execution. This is a genius idea. I've seen some videos from Leatherman where they were talking about the concept, and it really did come from not being able to take their Leatherman tools into certain places, amusement parks, airplanes, things like that. Any place that has a no weapons policy, you can't carry those Leathermans. Guys don't like to be without their tools. This is a great alternative. So if you've got questions or comments, post them below. I do have much more videos in the pipe. My back is feeling a lot better. I'm starting to get out in the shop again. I have actually put the finishing touches on my first 2 steel prototype knives. Here's a little teaser. If you're on my Instagram, you can see this knife and the other knife that I made recently that I'll be doing a small batch of. But more videos to follow, so like, subscribe, and thanks for stopping by. Peace.